Welcome to She's Got Guts, where functional nutrition meets ancient wisdom to bring you grounded insights and practical tools for your wellness journey. Join Lara, licensed Eastern medicine practitioner and wellness wizard, and Molly, registered dietitian and gut health expert, as they unpack trends, tackle bloating, balance hormones, and help you thrive in modern womanhood without completely frickin' losing your mind. Let's do this. Our guest today is an empathic author, artist, illustrator, badass woman who understands that every occasion requires a different type of celebration. So she created the literal most awesome greeting card company ever. Walk through all the emotions with us as we discuss reparenting ourselves while doing all the things. Welcome, Christi of Written Hugs Designs.
Thank you so
Hi.
much. Hi.
Nice to see
Oh,
your face again.
Likewise. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
our Blocks co-star. What we are talking
Mm-hmm.
about today, I know, is reparenting ourselves. But first, I just have to have you tell everyone about Written Hugs Designs because I honestly think it's one of the coolest companies I've ever heard of.
Oh, thank you so much. Written Hugs Designs is a company on a mission to help people feel more seen, more connected, and less alone. I started by creating greeting cards that are courageously vulnerable in the sympathy space, not only in the moments of raw sympathy, but when holidays, milestones, and celebrations make grief harder to bear, when it's the
Mm,
anniversary of sympathy, or when it's anticipated sympathy. If you know somebody who's terminally diagnosed, how do you step into that space and connect in a meaningful way? And so I began to make cards to come alongside and assist people in that. So it feels like a meaningful hug, not only to receive, but to give. And uh, and then additionally, cards that are deeply intentional in mental health space, whether they are encouraging and uplifting and affirming, like affirmations to give to somebody, or from the perspective of somebody struggling with mental health issues, and it's
mm,
hard to articulate what that feels like to your people, but you want to acknowledge how your people repeatedly choosing you and showing up may be an easy choice to them, but is a huge
mm,
deal. And it's
mm.
hard to say that. And so I have cards that say that in a meaningful way. And then finally, cards that are uniquely powerful in the celebratory space. So I have cards that have prompts right inside it that you answer about the person you're giving it to that you're celebrating. So you can kind of slow down and be more intentional. And it's so powerful to give somebody a card that's not just signing your name, it's like writing out a
Mhm.
thing. And some people do this really well and naturally, and they don't need the prompts, but some people really appreciate having the prompts there because it helps them have somewhere to kind of a jumping off point, somewhere to start, somewhere to something to think about to answer. So that's what I started with. And
Mm,
very quickly, I started getting feedback that people were really touched and moved by the messages. And that to me was the heart of this company. And I wanted to figure out how I could do that more. And so um, in June of 23, started a one-for-one donation campaign, which for
mm,
every card someone buys on my website, I donate a card to nonprofits serving people who also need these messages. So you know,
mm.
as a customer, that I bought a birthday card from Written Hugs Designs. Not only is it uniquely powerful and really unique and powerful, and like I just said uniquely powerful twice, but just
That's
so
okay. It
intentional and
deserves a
beautiful.
double down.
Yeah, right. There you go. Um, it's so intentional and beautiful, these moments of connection with your
Yeah.
person. You're also going to be uplifting somebody going through something really hard that you don't know,
Mm,
a stranger with us. And that's where I started. And I've since expanded to stickers with similar messaging, prints of some of the art, because I'm the artist and the writer of all of the art and messages. And then finally, I have this children's picture book that just came
mm,
out. That's all about parental mental health and, again, helping people feel more seen, more connected, and less alone, especially when being a parent who struggles with mental health issues or grief or the ups and downs of life, and you're trying to figure it out as you're going. So that's what it
It's
Wow.
that's what I do. Yeah.
it's so good, Christi, that you not only speak to this space in so many different form factors, so to speak, but life doesn't have a playbook and it's heavy and full
Hmm.
sometimes. And you've really created a really beautiful space to make that tangible for people, not only
Hmm.
in communicating with them, like with a card, but also sitting down and reading a book or slapping a sticker on somebody. Like, it's just really beautiful what you've done. And I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I want to hear more about your book.
Okay, it's kind of what started everything for me. I was a stay-at-home mom with three little kids in the throes of depression and anxiety, pretty
Ooh.
pretty severe depression and anxiety. And parallel to the moment I'm about to describe, there were two things happening. One, I was in therapy, and two, I was going through what's called ECFE in the state of Minnesota, which is early childhood family education. And I thought this was a nationwide thing, and I think it absolutely should be. So I'll describe it, and
Yeah.
hopefully other states have something similar. But what it is parents and basically newborns through preschool going into kindergarten age go to a class together, and it's structured based on the age of the kid, whether you can quote unquote separate from them for a time or not. But there's structured play activities that are put out for free play with you and your kid. And then there's circle time group activities with all the parents and all the kids, and songs and different things that you do together. And then there's a time where, again, depending on the age, the kids stay with a teacher and they do something more as just the kids, and the parents go with a parent educator. And during that time, you could be talking about all sorts of different parenting topics, child development. And this is where I was really introduced to understanding child development better, understanding how defiance, or what I saw as defiance, is actually what my kids should be doing. That's what they should be doing. They should be testing boundaries and testing limits to see what really matters, and how my response was affecting them, and how I was raised was affecting me, and how I wanted to show up differently. And all of these different things were happening in the background of being a stay-at-home mom with three little kids. And one of the things that I had learned in that class was children are hyper attuned to their parents' moods. And they have to be, because, evolutionarily, if they completely rely on us to be alive, and if something
Mm-hmm.
is startling or frightening their caregiver, they need to be on high alert themselves, because we might need to run away from the tiger or whatever that's coming, whatever thing is causing my parent to be uneasy. I need to be aware of
Yeah.
too, and we need to flee together and be safe. Now, this mattered and helped us many, many years ago, but now that same thing is true, but there's not a tiger. And so when we are not okay, being somebody struggling at the time, very struggling with depression and anxiety, what I was learning in the classroom was that my children were able to pick up on it, even when I wouldn't talk about it. And this one day, I dropped off my two older kids at a summer day camp, and I was walking my youngest back to the car holding his hand, and he was about 3 years old. And he said, "Mommy, why are you sad?" And I thought I was hiding it so well. I thought they had no idea. I said to him, "I love you when I'm happy, and I love you when I'm sad, and I love you when I'm silly, and I love you when I'm mad." And it felt so deeply true in this like truest, like
Yeah.
soul level sense of what I was saying to him.
Yeah.
And also like profoundly emotional, because I was so depressed and so anxious and believing, really struggling with those kinds of thoughts. I would say, trigger warning for anybody listening. Like, I'm about to share the thoughts that I was having, and if that's not something you should listen to right now, trigger warning that my kids would be better off if I was not here. That was my big
Oh.
depression thoughts that I was having. And so in that moment, saying that thing I knew was deeply true, I knew
Yeah.
was universally true. And I I realized in that moment that what I had been learning about kids being hyper aware and hyper attuned to their parents' moods and feelings was so true, because I thought I was doing such a good job of hiding it. And I
Yeah.
thought that should be a book. That should be a picture book,
Hmm.
because it
Hmm.
rhymed and it was so true. And so I set out to begin to illustrate it. And in the beginning, I was just gonna like shutterfly a book for my kids. Like I wasn't planning on doing anything beyond that. And as I began to share the progress on my iPad with my husband and my friends and different people, it began to morph into more and more people saying, no, this needs to exist in the world. Like people need to have this message.
Yeah.
And there's things about it that are really unique that I have not found in a children's picture book. So it's
Hmm.
called I Love You When I'm Happy and I Love You When I'm Sad. Connect with your
Oh.
kids through your highs and your lows. And the thing that I have not found in the mental health space with kids' books is it's about the parents' mental health, and it's written in the voice of the person reading it out loud to the kid. So it's written in the
Oh,
voice of the
cool.
caregiver talking to the kid. And I've found books about parental mental health that are picture books, but it's more like a third person talking about
Mm-hmm.
the parent who's struggling and explaining why, their bipolar parent behaves the way they do, kind of thing. But this is like
Yeah.
the bipolar parent reading and saying these things out loud to their kid, which I
Mm.
think makes it as powerful, if not more powerful, for the parent reading it than the kid
Right.
being read
Hmm.
to, because these things are hard to articulate, but they're true. And so what the book does is it teaches kids that it is not their fault when their parents are feeling down or sad or grieving. And
Mm.
here's an example of that. On this page, it says, it's not your fault when I'm feeling down or sad or blue. It's up to me to care for myself and for me to care for you. And if you look at the
Oh.
illustration, it's this mom and this little kid in a tent, and it looks a little gloomy, and the door's open, and this mom is obviously worried, and the kid is looking at the mom, noticing what's going on, but they're also not, they're very disconnected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is saying it's not your fault when you notice this, and it's up to me to care for myself and for me to care for you. So she zipped up that door of that tent, she's turned on the light, and she started reading books to them, and they're in a snuggly
Mm-hmm.
blanket now together. And so
Hmm.
that's the first thing that it does. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing that it does, it reminds kids that they are loved even when their parents are also feeling other things.
Hmm.
So I love you when I'm happy,
Yeah.
and I love you when I'm sad. I love you when I'm silly, and I love you when I'm mad. I love you when I'm
Oh.
tired, right? And I love you when I
Yeah.
Yeah.
glow. I love you when I'm grateful, and I love you when I'm low.
Oh my gosh. How
Yeah.
cute. And you
Okay, my
do all those
tears are
drawings.
coming like
I
all up in my
know.
eyeballs.
I know.
And this is
Christy,
why
this
it's
is so
so
good.
powerful, because
Yeah.
it's that depth of truth that is deeply true in all of our souls, and it's universally true for all of us. And it's
Mm.
Yeah.
hard to say and articulate. And it's these moments together of I love you when I'm busy, I love you when I'm stressed, or blessed, and I love you when I'm calm, and I love you when I'm stressed. These are moments that our kids see us in. They
Mm-hmm.
see these moments of being stressed, of being low, of being mad, of being sad, of all of these moments. And now there are words to describe what they're seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's words to describe my parents can feel more than one thing at the same time. They still
That
love
is
me
exactly
even
what I
when
was
this
thinking. Hmm.
this is happening too. They still love me, and it's not my fault. And
Mm-hmm.
us as parents are going to take care of ourselves, and we're going to take care of them too. So they don't need to carry the weight of something's wrong, am I not safe? Something's wrong,
Mm.
is it my fault? Like that's no
Yeah.
longer necessarily a question that we run the risk of them believing because we're not talking about it because we don't know how to talk about it. And
Right.
societally and culturally, we're just taught not to talk about it. Like just to
Yeah.
pretend and not acknowledge this is the reality some days. And then our kids are left to fill in the blanks with what they can come up with on their own. So then now there's a shared language. That's goal number 3. There's a shared language to be able to talk about it. So once you begin reading this with your kid, days down the road, I've had different people reach out to me to say, I've been reading this with my kid, and then 2 days ago, something was going on, and I stopped, and I was able to say, actually, and they referenced something in the book about, actually, no, you're not responsible for my feelings. Like, I'm feeling
Right.
frustrated, and I am also in charge of calming myself down and let's talk about this behavior or whatever the situation was. So that's goal number 3. And goal number 4 is particularly touching to me as a parent with depression. So it is to empower parents who are in a low to be able to care for themselves as well as the kid. And here's this part. Sometimes emotions overwhelm me and make it hard to play. That's why I'm learning to care for myself, which helps me through each day. I might meet with friends, make something new, or soak in a hot bath. I might go outside or exercise or take a long nap. There is one thing you need to know that is always true. No matter what feelings I feel, I will always love you.
Oh.
And that is in the book because as a parent with depression who was also circulating these thoughts about myself and my kids being better off without me in their lives, I did not also have bandwidth to stop and slow down and think about, use that mental energy to think about what do I need to help myself feel better right now. I had enough bandwidth to see what was in front of me to take care of them, to take care of the house, to get groceries, to get food on the table, to shuttle them around. That sort of thing didn't require that mental energy as much as slowing down and becoming super self-aware of, I think I need to go outside right now. That sort of thing just was not in my bandwidth. And so that's why it's in the book, is because it is 6 different things that are free to do, most of which you can do with your child in tow, that could help you take care of yourself while you're also taking care of your kid. So that's the book.
Oh my gosh, you've made me cry 3 times already, and I love you. And thank you so much for sharing your story. That was so beautiful. And so, like I said before, it's so tangible. There's this, I saw you kind of stepping around this word that I'm just going to say is really aligned. Like I felt when you had discovered that this book was going to be so beautiful for you, is you had this moment, you know, my hands are coming together here, like vertically in a line where you were like, and now I'm here. This is that moment. Like you had your soul and your human body and your little flesh bag and all the things that were happening with inside of you were like, I just tapped into my purpose. This feels really great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just thought that was such a magical moment for you. And I'm sure, you know, and I love that you just have that entrepreneurial spirit too. And with even in the bubble of feeling this way, was able to step forward into some shoes that made this tangible for others. Like that's
right.
Very brave of you. Yeah.
I hope that that's something somebody hears. And I'm glad you pointed that out. Like you don't have to be fully healed, fully anything to step into something and create something that's deeply true. Most of what I create through my business are messages I need to hear. That is very easy for me to say to either of you or to any of your listeners that you matter.
Right.
You are enough.
Yes.
And to say it to myself is a struggle sometimes still. And that's okay to step into that and begin to create in that space, because there is alignment and there is purpose and there is healing when you do that, when you step into it, and there's no prerequisite requirement that you be further than you are to begin.
Well, I don't know anybody who's like, I'm fully healed, what?
Right.
I mean, maybe from like a certain
Right.
symptom, like, oh, I
Right.
started
Yeah.
taking baths, so my shoulders feel great. I'm healed in my shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you still have menstrual cramps and headaches and skin
Trauma.
problems
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's, I
Right.
can't think of one successful person who didn't feel like they were in a shitstorm while they were also helping others. Like that's what
Right.
humans
That's
are
the
all
best
about.
helper. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it truly is. It
It
truly
really
Mhm.
is.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I also couldn't help but think of like when you were talking, I try to say this to my kids sometimes too, and mine are like 12 and 14, but I still need this book and will get this book for them because I'm also navigating for me what helps me show up as the best mom, and I feel like I've been doing that forever, but kids don't come with a damn manual, but this should be at every birthing center on the planet.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
health.
Mhm.
But that two things can exist at once, and actually many
Yeah.
many things can exist at once. But you can have
Yeah.
an experience as a child and a parent that can be multidimensional, and you can have an experience as someone who's maybe observing or a family member or parent your child, whatever, and all of it is true.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting
Right.
because I think sometimes depending on the way that you were raised, maybe the conversation is about who's right and who's wrong and what's the punishment.
Yep.
And that's like
Yep.
who has ever enjoyed that, and whatever good
Right.
what has come from that except an obedient person who cares zero about themselves. What has
Yeah.
ever
Right.
what good has ever come from that?
Absolutely.
And so I just love how you've created this dialogue and also a really, really great space of safety for many big feelings to exist at the same time. That is so incredibly hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, and it strikes me because as someone who is like both my parents are therapists, I've always been a really big, big on emotions and big on expressing emotions. And you do, you go to let's say you don't know someone super well, but you know them well enough and you like them and whatever, and you find out that something's happened to them. The only cards in the store are like, oh my gosh, I love you so much and I'm just feeling all this sympathy. And they're very, like, some of them are, I would say for most occasions, cars are inappropriate.
Shallow.
Right.
Shallow.
And right.
Superficial.
And exactly. But the other thing is, it's okay, like as we get older and we experience more and more things that we didn't have a manual for and that we continue to have to navigate, whether it is by parenting ourselves, parenting our children, or having issues with aging family members. I think there isn't a card or a book that explains, I'm upset because I just went through this thing as a woman or as a daughter or as a friend. And, here I am making you dinner as my child. I wouldn't know, but, to my dog, for example, but you don't want to. And it adds another layer of like just guilt and like more stuff. So not only are you bridging the gap between having an appropriate card to give to someone who's going through something like that, but you're also helping them to communicate those emotions to their children and teach their children that, these are okay things to have happen. And that's like a really, when you think about it, like huge bubble of things that you are helping people to address.
Yeah, I love that. And I love thinking about how our culture is shifting into talking about emotions more and talking
Thank God.
about like affirming and there's so many children's books now that are about like I think about the Spot of Feeling books that are about all these complex feelings to help kids understand there are words that we can use about these things. You aren't alone. There's nothing wrong with you. And how do we help our peaceful spot grow or these other things? And now with like this book, pairing it with all of that, it's showing that this doesn't stop in childhood. You don't arrive at peaceful spot all the time suddenly when you hit adulthood. Like we have these feelings throughout our lives for the rest of our lives, and we learn to navigate with them, and we can have tools that we practice when we're young so that when we're old it's easier to step into those tools and those routines that we've tested and know to help us. And if you're like me, and grew up the way I did or the way my husband did, we did not learn any of this growing up. We didn't
That's right.
learn that our emotions were okay to have. We didn't learn that it was okay to
Mm-hmm.
question. We were learned what we were told was it, and we had to obey
Mm-hmm.
immediately. And if not, there would be a consequence. If we had a feeling about
Yeah.
it, that was our problem to hide and not let anyone know, because if we had a face, then that was disrespectful. And so in the midst of that, of learning these things as an adult and now having children of our own who right this moment are 6, 9, and 11, we are
Mm-hmm.
trying to learn this in real time. How
Mm-hmm.
to like regulate emotion, as we don't always regulate our emotions because we
Mm-hmm.
have not practiced as much as our children now have. It's like almost like we've
Right.
practiced as much as our children have, and we are in many ways
Mm-hmm.
childlike in our emotional outbursts. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's also what's important about this book and about what I'm doing, is that this stuff is a journey and it's hard, and I want people to feel more seen and more
Mm-hmm.
connected along the way. And we're not so far behind. We're not so far gone. We are all, going back to what Laura said, we are all having our own experiences of this life, and our kids are
Mm-hmm.
having their own experience of us. And as we are learning to do better, there may come a time down the road where a repair needs to be made about how we parented one day. And I think we are preparing ourselves for that because we're practicing, and we're practicing this emotional regulation thing, and we are acknowledging that we don't always do. I feel very much on this path of reparenting myself in real time, trying to teach my kids this thing that I wish I modeled more and better, and trying to have as much grace for myself as I have for my kids when they
Yeah.
have their moments. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you started talking, it was probably like about 2 minutes ago. And I would just encourage the listeners to actually rewind about 2 minutes and listen to this again and remember that your mental health and your physical health deserve the
Mm-hmm.
same approach. Because
Yeah.
what she's describing here in your mental health, again, it's making me tear up. I don't know, it's so incredibly aligned with how
Mm-hmm.
the thought process can be extremely beneficial for your regular health.
Yeah.
Not that your mental
Mm-hmm.
health isn't regular, but I'm just trying to merge them
No.
together here
Yes.
in this conversation
Mm-hmm.
because it
Yeah.
is, being gentle with yourself and remembering that, what you did in the past doesn't have to be punted into this moment. You can be
Right.
graceful and forgive yourself and say, I'm just going to do my best to do better this time. And, when you're
Mm-hmm.
calm, take a moment and say, what is it that I did differently here? And how do I need support, and what can I do for myself for support so I can show up
Mm-hmm.
better for this moment? Because it's life, it's full, it's most likely going to happen again. And what can I do
Mm-hmm.
next time to show up,
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Something else that I think about when we have this conversation is there's always going to be things that we have to learn on our own. For example, all three of us have started our own businesses in an age with technology and all of that. And so old stories that we've heard about starting businesses, or things that we've heard about how women and power and, whatever it is, right? There's a million things. It's like all day, every day, I feel like I'm consciously fighting against beliefs that I have that are
Mm-hmm.
either no longer true, or that I get to choose are not true, or in many different areas of my life, not just business, but I'm using that as an example. And I think that that's, what Lara's saying and what you're saying, Christy, really good examples of how we can take our nervous system and look at it
Yes.
as a real, like, just like you have to work out, honestly, also to help your nervous system, we
Mm-hmm.
also need to do the work emotionally to
Mm-hmm.
become, like, to step into our power, to claim what we are capable of. I just can't thank you enough for coming on here and talking about this, because the
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're giving people permission to do that. And,
Yeah.
a lot of times, like you'll hear a lot online, oh, regulate your parasympathetic nervous system and make sure that you do deep breathing and do a cold plunge or whatever it is. But it's not about the trends. It's not about the buzzwords. It's not about necessarily
Mm-hmm.
like that stuff. It's really more about what resonates with you that helps you to
Mm-hmm.
get yourself in a place where you feel confident going forward with your
Mm-hmm.
life. And so, like you're saying, parenting your children in a way that maybe you were not parented, or learning the lessons that
Mm-hmm.
you need to learn in order to teach them to your children, or,
Mm-hmm.
however it works. I just, to give yourself, Christy, the permission to do that and to take the time to do that and then to help others to do that is such an
Yeah.
outstanding mission.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really
And
is.
yeah, and that just makes me think of another thing as you're saying that about like the trends and the buzzwords and the things that maybe are the exact match that aligns with your best friend or your
Mm-hmm.
partner or whomever you happen to be around, and it doesn't fit you. It's okay to give yourself permission to say, okay, maybe that right there is not the best thing for me. Maybe I need to do something different. Maybe I am not, maybe that version of exercise isn't the thing that speaks to me. Maybe I need to find my own version of exercise that
Oh,
does
yeah.
fill my soul and I get lost in the time of it. I feel like that is a big indicator. If you can get lost in the time of doing something, that is a
Mm-hmm.
big indicator that that's for you because it's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
helping you align with your soul and yourself, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
like constantly thinking and reminding yourself to keep on keeping on. It's 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 a big indication that for you. And if it's like keep on keeping on, not, I'm not saying just stop doing it, but maybe try something else alongside it, and like find what's right for you and give yourself permission that it might look different than the
Mm-hmm.
people super close to you, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. The difference between like the shoulds, right, which we've talked
Mm,
about in kind of a thread on this podcast, is it's the noise is so riddled with shoulds, and that becomes your own self-talk. But are you
yeah.
really feeling aligned when you're
Yeah.
shoulding your life away?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
We need to
probably
stop
not.
shooting on
There might
ourselves
be one of the 10 that
to
Mm-hmm.
bring
work.
it all
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
Yeah.
Stop
Mm-hmm.
shitting
Yeah.
on
So,
ourselves because that's so important.
so Christy, I was just curious, as you, I know you're in the time of like launching this book and everything, but I also know that you are an entrepreneur with a very creative spirit. So I'm curious if you have, thoughts on maybe what else you'd like to implement along with this book that is helpful for others. Because I know you probably have like 50 ideas, but is there anything, that you could get us
Yeah.
excited about that we can kind of look forward to?
Well, the thing that I'm partnering with somebody now, it's a really sweet story of like a full circle moment. So there's this woman named Jean who has this parent coaching legacy that she has left behind. She has passed, but I met somebody who was an apprentice and worked under her at a conference, and I was telling her about my book and about the mission and all the things, and she was like, that's amazing. Here's some affirmation work that Jean created that I need to get out in the world. Let's connect about this. And when we met to discuss, I just about started crying to find out that Jean had a huge hand in the ECFE program that I've been a
Mm.
part of
Oh,
for
I
10
just got
years of my
shivers.
life. And I
That's so
learned
Wow.
cool.
so much about all of this indirectly from her influence and legacy that she left in this program that she
Oh.
was instrumental in creating. And to meet somebody who was like, this feels like Jean, we need to connect about this, and then to find out that it really truly is, it's part of her
Mm.
Yeah.
legacy and how she's affected someone she never met in person. And then now I'm using my own unique alignment and what I bring to the world to continue to influence. And what we're working on is putting together some sort of curriculum support
Sure.
to ECFE
Mhm.
type programs,
Mm.
both for when those moments when it's the teacher child or teacher classroom full of children, and for the parent educator parents moments of
Mhm.
reflective questions and good dialogue. That was a big part of those parent educator groups. Is there's so much dialogue within those circles of parents coming together and discussing their thoughts on whatever the reflection questions are for the topic of the day. So we are working on pulling in some people who have had a hand in creating all of that and seeing
Mm.
if we can't get connected in the ECFE space. So that's something that I'm excited about. And then once that's actually created, I hope to have it included in future prints of the book, like in the book itself. Right now, I obviously have the copies I have, but I could maybe have some kind of insert or something with it as well once we get that developed. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
That's so amazing.
That is awesome.
I knew
Yeah.
you were brewing up something. And as an entrepreneur,
Something's
there's
going on.
nothing like an evergreen program that can bring you so much abundance and covering more, humans' hearts on what you're trying to share, but also can be very helpful for you in terms of your success and abundance, which is amazing. So I wish that both of those come through to you. And I want
Yeah,
to know
thank
how
you.
to help if you need it. I'm not in that space. My first thought, and this isn't a should bond, but I wonder if Meg would be helpful for you since she's also in that
Mm.
educator
Yes,
space. She could
yes,
would be kind of fun. But
yes. I need
yeah.
to connect with Meg. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you were to give people advice on how maybe they can start their own reparenting journey, or how they can start to kind of tap into or access these things that they weren't taught and they want to learn in terms of harnessing grief or emotions or moving through life, where would you recommend that people start?
I think on the most tangible place is to give yourself permission to ask questions.
Mm.
Give yourself permission to wonder. Give yourself permission to say, this isn't working for me, and let go of the expectation thing. I think
Yeah.
that some people see the expectation box and they immediately are turned off by it and throw it off at a young age, and they're on their own path really quickly. But there's those of us who 110% owned that expectation box as part of our
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
identities.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
to get to a point where you realize that doesn't fit anymore is terrifying. It's terrifying
Mm-hmm.
when
Yes.
you realize that's not really me. That's expectation. When it's been part of your identity for so long, that those are the people I'm thinking of, because that was my experience, and it was hellish. It was terrifying. I knew it would cost me because my decisions were outside of the expected box. And knowing that there will be consequences to not continuing in your expected box, and giving yourself permission to find who you truly are,
Mm.
who your soul is, what
Mm-hmm.
your purpose and alignment is, that is outside of this box, but you can't necessarily grab hold of it because it's not in the box anymore. And to know the
Mm-hmm.
moment you step out, you are starting something that could have extreme consequences, and taking that step anyway is a huge
Mm-hmm.
deal. It's incredibly brave. I'm going to get really choked up here. It's incredibly brave.
No, it's good. It is.
Yeah,
And
it is.
yeah, I would say give yourself permission. Number one. Number two, there are so many places and people that allow you that space to ask your questions. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
podcasts, there's so many places. And I would say, enter those spaces with curiosity and discernment. Wonder.
Yeah.
And if it feels true deeply in the depths of your soul and universally true, keep it. And if it feels like too far out somewhere, okay, leave it. And
Mm-hmm.
just know that, we are all seeking universal truth and alignment and best practices and best practices for us. And all of that is true. And I would be wary of someone telling you that they have all the answers. That's what I would say is a red flag. If someone has all of it together and has all the answers and all you have to do is ask them for their input, I would say,
no.
Great, and walk away. Sounds good, and not do that, because I've been down that road, and it's just not universally true. So that's what I would say.
Man, this just reminds me of when I'm dealing with my kids, as I say in my head all the time, don't be pissed, just be curious. Don't be pissed, just be curious. Because they're both like 12 and 14. They're in that tweeny land where they're like, so many things come out of their mouth where I'm like, who are you? And I'm like, don't get pissed, just be curious. Don't get pissed, just be curious.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in relationship too. And even with my family, like when my, no offense, Mom, if you're listening to this, but sometimes we trigger each other and I'm like, don't get pissed, just be curious. Don't get pissed, just be curious.
You like couldn't have told me that last week, huh?
I know, sorry.
Just kidding.
I know, that needs to be a sticker.
Yeah, seriously. Your new one, you can take it. Take it and run.
Yeah, don't be pissed, just be curious. Yeah.
Oh, well, Christi, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for being here with us today and for sharing your wisdom and for sharing your gift with the world. You are such a special person.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Your heart just resonates in everything that you do, and it is so inspiring. I am also trying to bring my heart really forward in the work that I do, and I just see you crushing it, and I'm so proud of you. And if you just want to go ahead and give me an IV of it, that would be amazing. Just kidding. I'm finding my own way.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate
Okay, where
do
we get the cards? Where do we get the book? Of course, yes.
How do we get all of your goods?
writtenhugsdesigns.com is the website, and you can get everything there.
I love it.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We offer personalized support to clients in many ways and would love to work with you. Reach out to Lara at Lala's Wellness and Molly at Women's Gut Health for more information. Unlock your full health and hormone potential with Super Cube, Boom Bomb, and Best Tea. Check out the link in the show notes for more. See you next Saturday.